Thrift-store book haul. Every one of these is in a different category. This will go with the other Shakespeare books. Look, it's all the Cliff Notes for Shakespeare's comedies. That's cool. This would probably be interesting just to read. Learn a lot. I love reading books about books. And that's a cool idea to collect all the Cliff Notes. I took an early Christianity class at UNM, and it was super interesting. I mean, you don't have to be a member of a religion to benefit from knowing about its history, especially when it's such a huge thing. It's also just really, I don't know, it's fascinating stuff. That was a very interesting class. I sometimes disagreed with the approach of the professor who, like, to him, like, the book of Acts was just a historical document, 100%. Everything it said happened. But I don't know. It's pretty interesting to read about, ancient writings being dug up and pieced together and stuff. This book looks very cool. 2039. This is from the future. An ad on the back. Like a moneylender in the temple. It's a great font. I like it. Reminds me of the movie The Omen for some reason. They use a similar font. The original. Plutarch's Lives. Well, some of them. Plutarch, 8 Great Lives. Love this classic looking book. It's in a little beat up condition. Hey, revised by Arthur Hugh Clough. I bet I'm related to that guy. My dad's mom's side was the Cloughs, originally spelled like that. Came over to America from Salisbury, England in the 1630s to Salisbury, Massachusetts. Later in the 1800s, descendants of that line changed the spelling to Clough, C-L-U-F-F, as they went west with the Mormons. But it's on the Clough side that I'm able to trace back my farthest ancestor, somebody who fought with William the Conqueror and was given land after the 1066 battle at Hastings. But that's not cool because those conquerors were pretty rapacious and awful. They were a tidal wave of torture and rape and murder. They were promised the spoils of war, meaning to them women and property. And that meant killing everybody who stood in the way of that and taking that property because there were no spoils to be had. It was just people that already lived there. I mean, 1066, The Year of the Conquest, is such a good book. I highly recommend that. It's really the history of all of us in our modern Western civilization. I mean, because it was such an unsustainable situation that arose after the 1066 conquest by the French and the Norse of England. So, like the Vikings were always raiding France, and eventually France was like, if we give you land, will you stop raiding us? So they gave them Normandy, beloved of the Norse. And that contributed a lot of these invaders, along with a battle axe wielding Norwegian king. Anyway, it was an unsustainable situation that came about as a result of that conquest, which was mostly fought with really long-handled weapons on a bridge. Crazy. Axes and swords. Positively quaint by modern technological standards, I'm sure. Still probably terrifying. Crazy. But anyway, to sustain that system, they had to build castles with torture chambers everywhere, or so they thought. And the class system went into hyper overdrive. And so that's great. Not like we're still living with the effects of all that. But if you ever read old books, you always hear about Plutarch's Lives. It's like what young people were raised to read and stuff. I think he wrote The Lives of the Saints. Let's see. The 1960 copy. Nice. Thrift stores are still keeping the past alive. A couple times in my life, I've gone into a store, usually in a really out-of-the-way place, and just stepped back in time. A gas station when I was a kid that was still very much in like the 1930s. I remember just being like, what did I walk into? We just stopped there on a road trip somewhere in Arizona as a kid. And I was like, that's really old. Like their toys were like all made of tin that they had for sale and stuff. Another time it was a convenience store in Alabama in 2001 that just sold millions of crickets. There were just crickets covering everything and all around. And it was late at night. So eerie, and there wasn't a thing in there that you wouldn't have seen before 1960. Didn't look like they'd updated, their foodstuffs much. but it was mostly like non-food stuff. Or the old Fair and Square grocery store here in Albuquerque. That they still film movies in it because it's such a relic of the 50s. Sad it's closed. I drive past it in some of those Reading Central videos. Driving east on Central in the dark. Anyway, I love old stuff. I'm intrigued by antiquity. We're connected to all this. Like, rewind anybody from anywhere in the world, and they get back to big stories. There used to be fewer people. So, like, anything that happened, you were only so many degrees away from it. Even today, we're, like, very connected. I can do that 7 degrees of separation with celebrities, like, really easy now. I'm usually, like, 2 or 3 away. It's weird. Not always, but sometimes, if I ever bother with it. I remember playing it in college when I was like 17, and no one in the group knew anything about any celebrity, so it was impossible. No one ever got like 1 point. Plutarch was born about AD 46, and he died after AD 120 in the reign of Hadrian. His birthplace was Chaeronea, a small town in Boeotia in central Greece, not far from Thebes. And here he lived and worked for most of his life so that his beloved town might not be made less by the withdrawal of even one inhabitant. Wow. Studying commitment did, however, take him from Chaeronea occasionally. He was studying philosophy and science at Athens during Nero's visit to Greece. Well, he cared about his town in a really interesting way. He later traveled through much of Greece, went to Asia Minor and Egypt, and on an official mission to Italy. His sojourn in Rome gave him the opportunity to make important friendships and to study the city's history, with visitors and lecturing and business so pressing on him that he never found the time to master Latin. Once in a while, I just get like hungry for antiquity. I just want to dive into it, and I read stuff from it. And that's probably what will happen with this book. Or, you just keep building up evidences and reasons to read something, and then one day, that dam breaks. You're like, I gotta read it. I had P.G. Wodehouse in mind a little bit after making that video about him. It's an interesting modern version of one of his minor non-Jeeves and Lister stories, probably. It's about Blandings. There's a big book about Blanding stories there too, and I would have gotten it, except the spine was in kind of crappy shape. And I'm a snob, even if you can't tell sometimes. It's kind of a nice modern edition, I suppose. I'm sure I have a lot of those. No, I don't have any of those collections. It's a 2012 book cover. It's interesting. Galahad Threepwood has decided to keep his memoir unpublished, much to the dismay of his publisher, Lord Tilbury. It's about a memoir. I guess that's fun. Maybe I'll read it for that reason. My daughter Anodyne said, "You're like Moomin Papa in the Moomin books, writing your memoirs." I really don't have room for this on the paperback shelf. I'm going to have to figure out what to do. Something else will have to go, or I'll have to have another section, an overflow section from that case. I don't know if I want that. But I think it's the same edition my friend Danny read when I lived in Alaska a long time, and I was always like, how is that? And he got really into it. It's cool having literate friends. I mean, I think it used to be more normal for like everybody to have like a literal little books in their lives, But that friend Danny, he ended up being a really cool writer, and we're still friends, and we're starting a writing podcast called The Pen and the Sword. The Pen and the Sword. And we recorded an episode. I think it's going to be pretty fun. He's just really energized right now, like diving into the spirit of writing. He, hadn't considered himself a writer for a long time, but he was always just a great storyteller, and he always read and had an appreciation. Think about Norm Maclean, who wrote A River Runs Through It at 75, and that was his first published book, and it won all the awards, and the movie won all the awards. Amazing. This is honestly one I've started a couple times before and never made it all the way through, Anna Karenina. But I've read War and Peace, and I've read a lot of other Tolstoy. And I've read Ivan Illich many times. And Ivan Illich is back in the pop culture zeitgeist right now because it had a cameo in Severance. Kind of a repeated cameo. I've noticed videos about it popping up. But maybe I'll read that sometime. because yeah, it's weird. Everyone always has a different takeaway than you. And, I know I forget stuff and miss stuff on this channel all the time. Dang it. Get stuff wrong. Say Cormac McCarthy instead of Truman Capote or whatever. But that's just because I had COVID twice and I'm going insane. My dad has dementia, so great, I'm probably dying. But first, insanity. Or like looking at the cover of the Dream Master the other day and being like, why is there a dog on here? I can't remember this. And then I was watching a Liminal Spaces video today and was reminded, oh yeah, a dog's one of the coolest parts of that book. There's this like technologically enhanced dog that at one point takes a car to go save this guy and get help. It's fantastic. It's a really great part in that book. I totally forgot. Anyway, that's the last of the Dream Master. This is Anna Karenina. I really loved that recent Tom Stoppard scripted movie version of Anna Karenina. It was so good. I'm not ignorant as to what it is. Like I said, I've read War and Peace, and I've read a couple of biographies of Tolstoy. Some people say War and Peace is like the one for bros, and Anna Karenina is the one for ladies. I mean, I think that's dumb, because Tolstoy wrote them both. And I remember liking this one, and liking the character. I'm just such a Dostoevsky freak. I'm so biased. But let's see if I can figure out a way to get that onto the shelf. If so, that means it'll be read as part of the paperback project. This I got not because of the title, which made me want to not get it. It was like, oh, this sounds very academic. But it's by Paul Goodman, and he and his brother Percival wrote Communitas, which is like the best book on urban planning and how cities work and better ideas for cities that I've ever even thought of. That's a great book. I love Communitas so much. And so when I saw another book by him, and it's a vintage classic paperback, I thought maybe it'll be all right. John Keats says, an eloquent book that could be read with profit by any parent who actually has his child's welfare at heart, to say nothing of his own. Compulsory miseducation. The community of scholars. I bet this is one of those books that's outdated, but has a lot of foundational information that would be really good to know. And lead to further study. Dang it, if I'm going to be going to meetings, about strong cities and stuff, first one this week, maybe I should start reading nerdy stuff like this. No, I will. I'm drawn to stuff like this once in a while. Every kind of book that's in this house is a book I occasionally get an inclination to read. I'm interested in nonfiction and learning about how things work. I'm like a pattern seeker. I feel like that's something an artist can bring to all reality and then bring back to their art with them. Okay, before I show this one, this is now one of the weirdest books I own, I think. The cover, I was like, what am I looking at? The Tin Angel. Okay, so what's going on here exactly? There's the dancing Cocker Spaniel with a hat and a dog biscuit bow tie and a stick. It looks like medals. And then there's this terrifying skull face thing above it. There's the title that doesn't match everything here. Maybe that face, the Tin Angel. What? Start with some medical transplants, add a dash of cybernetic engineering, and a talking dog can be a commonplace. But Bowser was no commonplace. He was the top-rated star of 1999's television. Comedian, commentator, actor, and temperamental headache of the media masters. But he was still a dog, man's best friend to the vast gaping audience of watchers, and a cur, mutt, and son of a five-letter word to Bert Senchly, his agent and guardian. So when Bert got two assignments at once, both taking him and Bowser to the battlefront in Lower California, where the various guerrillas and rebels were making news, history, and hysterics, it was the climax. Bowser was determined to keep on grabbing the headlines. Bert was determined to keep a grip on his own life, and the rest were equally set on blotting them both out. Satire. The San Francisco Examiner and Chronicle calls Ron Goulart our favorite satirist in the field of science fiction. The Tin Angel, like whatever became of Screw Loose and a talent for the invisible, upholds that reputation and enhances it. Lousy binding, dang it. Will I keep this one? I don't know, it's pretty weird. Well, I think I have to. But the binding is not good. No, this one has to stay with us. It's too odd. It's a DAW sci-fi books. I've heard Liminal Spaces talk about DAW books. I thought they all had yellow spines, but maybe it's like a numbered collectible series. That's pretty cool. 95 cents. It's got a couple of mugs. Canada. Probably the same lead cadmium gold mix McDonald's used on their glasses in the 70s and 80s. I've always wondered, did those glasses give me seizures as a kid? Why did I have seizures? Or was it the leaded gasoline and just everything around at that time? No, here's hoping that's benign. Do love Canada. This one I just got because I thought it was a pleasing mint blue color, blue-green, but it has the word improvements on it, which means if I ever drop and break it, it's like a horrible symbol. So that's great. It was like a Mary Kay and Ashley thing. Or what's that? No, that's something else. What is the company? Mary Kay. Mary Kate and Ashley were those creepy twins. Okay, never mind. But no, I guess they weren't creepy. Why did they say they were creepy? Maybe just because I saw those DVDs in bargain bins forever. Mary Kay is like a makeup company, right? Don't they use a color scheme like this? Yeah, I've like broken a couple of cups lately. It always feels symbolic if you break a cup. I don't know why. Because I've been writing a memoir about my own life forever, and I'd get locked into like symbolism mode and all the time. Yeah, a dozen picture frames to put things in. And I want to fill all the spaces on the walls in the house, just over time, you know. Well, everyone, hope you're all having a good week, and take care.